me debería cambiar la camisita, ¿verdad? Bueno.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live transmission. I have a very, it's like the 99.99999 of the plasma. It's like a very special guest with me today. My dear friend, uh, Ines Urdaneta, who happens to be an amazing physicist. Not only she has created the Serendipia Science School now that you can access, by the way. She will be giving all the details later on throughout the as we go through this video. Um, Yet she has also collaborated with Nassim Haramein, with his unified field theory. That I have very much resonance with all his information, and actually, it was due to him that Ines and I got to know each other. So, and last but not least, and I really, it was a really like a very big way to summarize it. But the last thing, but not least, again, is that we will be at Disclosure in Mackinaw together. So I'm very excited. I really am not getting tired of saying how excited I am about going to Disclosure in Mackinaw. Big minds, like minded people, and sharing all these topics that we are so passionate about. So, having said this, hey Ines, how are you?
Hi, dear. How are you? Thank you for this opportunity to share. Um, I am very excited about this adventure that being involved. Thanks, basically, to your invitation, because this is something that happened because of this expedition that we went together, and that I got to meet well, the people involved, the person who was organizing, who is Frank Rogala, and all these other research that were there, Trevor Grassi, and so it was for me a very incredible experience just to be on site excavating. So I cannot thank enough how much I liked that. It was very very interesting for me in many levels, in many levels. So yeah, and so now this is the opportunity to go and be part also of this adventure that we're going through as humanity, right? Because it's extremely important what's happening at this moment with everything that's been disclosed. Uh, yeah, in everything. The word in Spanish, because you and I, we speak Spanish originally. That's our native language. It's like revelation. Yeah, the name, the word like apocalypse has like two meanings. This revelation and it means revelation. So basically, it's time of revelation. So it seems. So yeah, I'm really honored to be part of that as well. And so I thank you so much for that. And so yeah, let's and we have I think many things that are unfolding from the unfolded. This is what we're basically looking into, and so it's amazing. It's just incredible. I just cannot believe, how things happened, and now I'm here. And some years ago, I mean, not that far, 20 years ago, nothing would be like what's happening now. It's just incredible, the change that has happened. So at all levels, with many everything in any in who would have been talking about ETs and all of that. Now it's almost impossible. So it's incredible.
I know that now that you mentioned that, I remember sitting at the table with my family, me talking about reptilians and other races, and like some of them laughing at me, like literally. And I was like, okay, we'll see. We'll see.
Well,
Of course, they have amnesia, it's like that never happened, but I do remember.
how funny, when I was a child with my mom, we would look this TV show. It was Supersonics.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
Supersonics. This is just like for children, right? The child. Yeah, it was. And I remember my mom would say, "This is so weird that we're not yet there. We were supposed to be there already." And I would look at her like, "What are you talking about, mom?" And she was like convinced, "No, we should have been there a long time ago." And I was like, and now I understand what she meant by
Wow.
that. So yeah, that was incredible. My mom with that, we would watch that together. So yeah,
Oh, that's nice knowing that your mom was very already tapping into that. She was very tapped into that. Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. No, as I was telling you, in my case with my family, it was pretty different. Yeah. But anyway, like here we are. I was just doing a video 2 days ago about some encounters that I had with, since I was a little girl, with plasma beings, because how, like, isn't reality like so exquisite? Plasma starts coming back online, like people talking about plasma. And now we open our awareness to the plasmoids, to the plasma beings. It's like there is a unified tic tac that's once something beams, then another, like all the other as avalanches, they start awakening one by
It's
one.
it's
Yeah,
like a synchronicity, right? Like everything was extremely synchronized. That's very surprising. Yeah, yeah. Like it makes you change your perspective, your way of looking at things. Because then you see like whatever is unfolding, it was already unfolded. I mean, it's nothing, like you are not creating nothing. It's kind of like everything was already there. It's just now
exactly.
becoming manifest. So that's a completely different way of looking into in to your life. Everything changes from that perspective. So yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes you also go into the what's the essence. No, now you understand all these metaphors, like biblical things like that. Like in the seed you have the tree. Well, what does that mean? It's everything is just holographically imprinted. So that's it.
Yes,
I mean,
I
yeah.
know.
So the point is, yeah. Yeah, and I have been learning a little bit about Robert Temple's work on, this. He's got a book, very famous book now, which is talking you precisely about the plasma that they have been detecting in outer space. That we are like having these regions of plasma, like plasmoids, that they're uncovering, and
And plasma tunnels, you also mean, like this, like one example, this huge plasma tunnel that they found that is in the solar system, that it's like from here, from the solar system, it takes all the way to Alpha Centauri and Canis Major. So then you start understanding all the mythologies as well. Like you go through, like the like Anubis takes people through the Duat, to Orion, and you say, of course, it was also a cosmic pathway, like the pathway of the soul going through the cosmos. And there are so many ways to interpret this. One of the things that I love about quantum physics is that it does it in a very simple way. That's how I perceive it, and this is why I love sharing about this. I love it because you're a physicist, you studied a lot. I know that like you have these amazing credentials. I'm more of a, as how Frank would say, an intuitive physicist. And we have
Yes.
so much fun together because, I mean, like the first time that you and I talked, we talk about all these deep topics that involve spirituality, science, esoterics, because at some point they got divorced, you know, as they say about the same physics and all these sciences that have gotten divorced, you
Yeah.
know, also spirituality and science at some point got divorced. And it's like, hey, you need to to make it, to make up, you know, you need to come back together because you are one, you know.
Yeah.
This is not the way that it's meant to be, you know, because I think that one of the things that we both have been exploring is how all these ancient teachings are talking about quantum physics, are talking about the unified field, the holofractal field. And you know, that's where it gets really really interesting, because as you were saying about all these plasmoids that have been founded now, um, it's the same like with the Boogosphere code. You know, it's very funny how the Boogosphere appeared and then all of these artifacts started popping into the surface, popping out into the surface. And a lot of skeptical people, very much entitled to be that for sure, are like,
Mhm.
oh, come on, you know, like the Boogosphere appears and then you have all these ancient alien artifacts with this code. What a synchronicity. Yet
Yeah.
now we just gave the example of the plasma beings. Are you going to say that also the plasma beings, they are fake? You know, no, it all works for resonance. And before me going into that, I would love if you share with us how would you explain it through the quantum physics, you know, like this major synchronicity that takes place.
Yeah. You know, it's beautiful because well, you're touching many topics. The first of all, I think that separation between science and spirituality, it's kind of recent. It's just had, I think it's just 100 years or something like that, because the ether was kind of like discarded. You know, when you discard the ether, which is the source of everything, that ancient traditions, and even even the physicists, which at the time they were not called physicists, they were called natural philosophers. So these are the philosophers of nature. And when you track the history of science, occidental science, I would say, it comes from philosophy. And philosophy was this had this deep intuition and this deep relationship between the observer and the observed. So it was kind of like questioning the observation in with respect to the observer. So it was kind of like already considered. And then at the time they would think that and during many like Maxwell and I mean no one would have thought that space was empty. It was impossible to believe that empty space was just empty space and the planets were just there, you know, sustaining on nothing. So you know, so this and yeah, it's kind of weird that, I mean, it was intuitive that there was then of course when some experiments came along and they discarded the existence of the ether, the luminiferous ether, uh, it kind of brought us to a very to a close to a dead end, I would say, because then what happened? Then you have that came general relativity and quantum mechanics, and they kind of introduced a different version of the ether, which is
Yeah.
not compatible. You know, there's the ether from the, let's say, general relativity, which is space time. No one knows what space time is, what it is composed of. It's just this kind of elastic substance, or not even a substance. It's just this elasticity that it's that's and that's a continuous flow, like some like that changes continuously, like a continuous deformation of space time. So it's thought to be continuous. On the other side, there was quantum mechanics that came along saying, okay, so we have quantization, which basically means that light matter interaction, which is another different topic. It's very different to relativity, general relativity. It's just that interaction between light and matter was quantized. They were exchanging something called photons, energy, packets of energy, which is quantized. And somehow this also introduced, let's say, quantum mechanics introduced the notion of quantum vacuum fluctuations, which is the ether described from the perspective of a very small scale. And these quantum vacuum fluctuations are very energetic. They're extremely strong. It's kind of like you're in a very energetic soup, and which is extremely radically different to the description of the smooth space, which would be, let's say, the ether at the cosmological scale. So that's something that created a huge separation, because supposing empty space with no properties, except for the fact that it's just bending because of the presence of mass and energy, then that would justify this framework where you are separated from everything else. Everything is separated because space is separating
Exactly.
us. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
separation frame, this absolute separation frame came from modern physics, and that's just 100 years from now. A little bit more, 120, 130. So then now we're going back into unification. So that's when, let's say, so you could say that modern physics is that, it's the separation between quantum mechanics and general relativity. So you have the reality divided in in two parts, the very small and the very big, which is not logical, because you could think that the very big is composed of the very small. So there should be a transition, from the from that higher density, which is the atomic world, the subatomic world, and deeper, very
Yes.
very density, and very low density of of what's supposed to be empty space. It's just a gradient of information density across scales, and that's what is missing in modern physics, and that's what unified physics, which is a holographic theory, is providing. So then, now then again, if you think that there's this, from the perspective of the separation frame from modern physics, the non-locality would be impossible. It would be impossible because there's no way, space is just separating things. It's not connected except for gravity, because the gravity field is, it doesn't end. It's let's say, continuous. But let's say that its impact is negligible. You don't have that connectivity through space. Entanglement then becomes a mystery, because what's entanglement, no one knows. You know that quantum mechanics predicts entanglement, but it doesn't explain what entanglement is. So that's where we are at with modern physics. And so you have to change your framework. You have to change the perspective. You cannot stay in modern physics if you want to explain non-local behaviors,
Exactly.
non-local, non-linear behaviors. It cannot go through that description. So that's basically the problem that we have in modern physics now. And now that unified physics came along with Nassim's theory, Nassim Harameyn's holographic theory, is uniting, it's creating, it's explaining that in reality what we have, this empty, supposed empty space, is it's a substance. It's got mechanical properties. It's quantized in its most fundamental level. It is quantized by these extremely energetic entities, and he calls the space the plasma flow. I mean, he calls this space is the Planck plasma.
The Planck
It's
plasma.
the Planck
Exactly.
plasma. Okay, so
Yeah.
you have the Planck plasma and all the properties that the Planck plasma can manifests, brings about everything that we see. So everything is emerging from this Planck plasma field,
Yes.
this Planck plasma flow. So of course you could then have plasmoids and all types of. The important concept here, I would say, is, I mean, if you want to put it like technically, would be the boundary condition, because all these things have boundary conditions. So you need some sort of boundary condition to contain the effect, the phenomena, whatever you're talking about. So so I would guess so that if, in order for you to distinguish between different dimensions, planes, aspects of reality, there are boundary conditions that define them so that you can distinguish one phase from the other one. So basically, what we're talking about is that transitions from one state to another one going through boundary conditions.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, because for instance, you say, okay, so the field is unified. So how do boundaries then fit in that if everything is interconnected? And that's for instance, without boundaries, there wouldn't be any consciousness, you
No.
know,
Yeah.
because then like so then you comprehend that everything serves the same purpose. That's what unites them, because everything is serving the same purpose. So you're using even the boundaries themselves as bridges to something that is nonlinear. You just need to give away a thought, how it's going to connect you to something, in this case, consciousness. So then you go beyond the linear thinking. And I think this is very much what we were talking about reality itself. You know, it's like you say, okay, disclosure. Well, I don't see, I mean, I do see a lot of spaceships, mainly when I'm, for instance, in Sedona, you know, or other places, you know, it's like it's a traffic jam, you know, it's like, hey
Yeah.
guys, you know, at least one come here, you know, I just want to have a ride, a quick one. So,
Just land there to take a picture.
yeah, exactly. But, you know, like all this idea of this humongous, um, disclosure event of a massive spaceship, you know, like almost it brings me to the Independence Day, you know, with Will Smith and so forth. So it's like we are focusing, it's like we are entangled, and I'm talking about this word as, you know, quantum entangled. I know you know what I talk about, but this is for the beautiful soul tribe. So I'm entangled to a construction that has been pre-settled, pre-configured, and then my energy is, you know, just fixated, like face locked to that outcome. So everything else that is taking place in all that infinite field of probabilities, I'm not observing it. And actually, disclosure could be having a plasma being in my bedroom telling me, hey, it's time to go to bed. We have missions to do. Why not? You know,
Yeah.
I think that each one is experiencing their own disclosure in a unique form. And I think that's beautiful, because also disclosure, it's not only about galactic beings, it's also about very same physics. You know, it's like you're disclosing all this information that it was a scene before, like, oh, how could she? I can imagine you giving lectures somewhere, you know, that go through
Yeah.
the standard model and all those faces like, what is she saying? Who does she think she is? You know?
Exactly that. You know, it's that, yeah, that's why I like to say revelation, you know, because you're revealing something which is unknown. And it's just like a deeper layer, like in the onions, you have these layers, and then you're going deeper into these layers. And that's exactly what happens when you see this change of separate this change of perspective, then and things kind of like make more sense, because there has to be a logic behind. I mean, things have to go, because this is another thing that one has to realize. There's a direction going on, there's some kind of guiding wave. There's this guiding wave that's creating auto-organization. It's not a random chaos like what modern physics proposes. So there's this organization, this force thriving through, which is an auto-organization field. So the plasma, the first thing that I would say it has is this feedback feed-forward mechanism that allows for auto-organization. So it's a living system then, because if you had feedback feed-forward, then it's feeding itself on everything that's happening, and it's actualizing, and it's the information is speed is extremely fast for its actualization of the information. So this is allowing for the system to readapt and recalibrate and reorganize, and so it's extremely homeostatic, and it's like a living organism. So universe has to be a living organism, and everything that's being birthed within, like in uterus, like the matrix, like the womb, this
Yeah.
womb, it's just creating living organisms. Everything is extremely, you find that it's intuitive and very logical, that this is very, and it's got like an ontological grounding. It's grounding and it's containing, it's giving you grounding and contention. So and that's this feedback feed forward mechanism, which is an intrinsic property of the plasma field, so which allows for everything else. I would say, if I was asked what was the most important property of this plasma, is that the feedback feed forward, that it's able to feedback on itself. So that's a way of having some sort of like proto self awareness, because you're looking back at yourself. In a certain sense, it's like, yeah, space time like folding into itself to watch itself. So
Right.
then, yeah, that's incredible. So it's kind of like birthing all these reference frames in order to see itself from so many perspectives. And you
Yeah.
could say that, yeah, it's yeah, it is much more grounding, and it is much more uh yeah, it also removes. So you were saying everyone connecting from their own vector, I would say, no? So everyone is like kind of like having their own realization, and it's got to go through that process of being only yours, let's say, because it's kind of like your connection to source.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, yeah, so
Hmm.
important process of individuation also, no? Which is
Yeah.
something that's beautiful. And the universe is just doing that, like like creating this subsystems, I don't know how to call that, these living organisms that are, and everything connected through the boundary condition, because that's something that's incredible. You wouldn't have you need, oh, and kind of it sounds logical, you need separation in order to have unity. You need to have that separation frame. It is
Yeah.
indispensable. Without that, you wouldn't have anything else. There wouldn't be any information, there wouldn't be any observer. You need the separation frame. So yeah.
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 Which leads me to the big Sophia, that how she is normally seen as, the one that perpetuates a fault, false, then creates all this construction. And it's very much an approach of a victim, and also the one that messes it up, like its fault, its flaw. And if you think about it, I was the other day, like tapping into that and some beautiful information that was being shared on YouTube. And I was like, we're talking about purposes. Everything has a purpose. Everything. Otherwise it wouldn't exist. And purpose is mainly evolution. Everything is evolving.
Yeah.
So even a proton that stops existing, some people would say that's involution, but it's like, from the perspective of whom, you know?
Yeah.
So saying, so if everything has a purpose, what if everything in higher realms was so boring, like, so, I'm not a joke, but
Yeah.
like, I'm just joking, but like, so all full of the same frequencies all the time, and there was a need to expand consciousness and start receiving different types of feedback. That, in our reality, would involve creating a construction like this, you
Yeah.
know? So then this construction has a purpose, as well as, as you were saying how they would refer to the field as chaotic, like all this infinite field of probabilities is chaotic. No, why? Like, seriously, why? Just, and then you have other cosmologies talking about the weaver, And for me, this is much, even I wore the shawl of a weaver,
Yeah,
like the
beautiful.
net. It because like this is very much like the field, it's dynamic, it's fluctuating, it's and I didn't do that on purpose. Of course, I was already ahead of time, but
Yeah.
but
Usually, a phrase that says weaving with how do you say las agujas? How would you say that when you're doing
needles,
the needles with
yeah,
needles of time and how you call the el hilo
the
thread
the
the,
thread.
with it with needles of space and threads of time. So you're weaving that. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. It's
Yes.
like every time that I see a spider, I am mesmerized because I see how they construct their web. And I'm saying, this is our DNA. This is the fabric of space time.
Yeah.
It's like even when you see through the light, then the filaments of the web reflect. But if you're not seeing through the light, it could appear that the spider is levitating, or is suspended.
Yes.
So that's this, it's that technology, if we remember how to weave ourselves through the very same fabric of space-time, through the space, through our plasma field, you know levitating, flying, it's very much that you do it faster, of course, yet you're tapping into the filaments of the very same space, you know and even if you go deeper, which I love, imagine that you're touching upon all of these filaments that are spatiotemporal constants. So at some point, while you're flying, while you're levitating, while you're cooking, while you're washing the dishes, or laughing or exchanging like this, you are tapping into different spatiotemporal constants, activating, deactivating them due to the merely exchange that we're having. We will
Yes.
never be the same. We're like crystals, like we are refracting the energy. It won't be the same. We're just nourishing it with our own field. So this is the things that I love. And because, I mean, one of the things, and I'm pretty sure that you have had many times this experience, is when you start approaching to reality in this time, from this standing point, at least right now, a lot of people could find it very complex. Yet, once you embody this knowledge, once you make it yours, it simplifies your reality so much. So,
Yes.
so much. And
Yes.
isn't it? Have you had these friends, people, um, students, and so forth that they have told you, wow, like this has changed my life just by including the quantum physics in my reality?
Yes, I have had that experience mainly with the quantum of consciousness because when I was working with that idea, this is just something that came spontaneously. I was doing my PhD in France, kind of frustrated because it was extremely technical, and well, as a physicist, many I now it's very funny. I have friends that are very spiritual and they're very connected and have a high deeply intuition, and they tell me I would have loved to study physics, and I say not, don't be so sure about that. Don't be so sure about that. I can only rescue three concepts of all physics that I studied. And imagine spending 25 years of your life into something that you can only, which you would only, let's say, embrace three things. That's that ratio is not so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I
you know,
know.
it's not a good ratio. It's not a good ratio. One of those concepts that for me was overwhelming. That was that things are the opposite of what you see, in the sense that when you see light matter interaction, and it's important to understand that you never see light directly, what you see is always light matter interaction. So that's something incredible, because when you see light, you think, oh, I'm looking at this light coming from this bulb, I'm seeing light, and light is white. And no, 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 you're not seeing light directly, you're just seeing how the dispersion of light is going through air, because they're atoms of the air, da, da, da. So it's just refraction, but you never see light directly. You cannot see light directly. You never see light directly. And for me, that was like overwhelming when I understood that through quantum mechanics and light matter interaction. Hi,
Hey,
Frank.
we have a beautiful surprise. Hey, Frank.
I was I was in the middle of like going through a whole sound thing, and I went, "Oh no, I'm missing it!" So I'm coming in the middle. I have no idea the context, so let me just lurk a little bit, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to make it a surprise. I told Frank this is why I didn't tell you anything,
Oh
Ines.
my God. Did we are we confused of program? Happened? Did we connect in the wrong show?
Well, it's great to see you again. I mean, we had the last time we were together, we made some history, so it's nice to be able to reconnect. And I'm
Yeah.
just actually, I was putting together more materials, advertising and this is just the most incredible thing to have, this group of people, and not only that, the fact that we all experienced a common thing along with all of the information that we're all bringing together. Anyway,
Yes.
so I don't I it sound like you guys were on a roll, so I don't want to interrupt because I literally went, oh no.
No worries, no worries, no worries. I was just sharing my experience on the few concepts that I embrace of physics. It's not that much. It's really not that much because well, because it's complicated. It's really technical. But while I was doing my PhD, I was thinking in the logics behind light matter interaction, and it captivated. For me, it was captivating to see that when you see something let's say red, it's not red, it's everything but red, because the red is the emitted let's say light. The rest is absorbed, for instance. So you're seeing everything as the opposite of what it is, literally speaking. When you see light matter, so that for me was right one, like a wow. So when I'm seeing this apple and I think it's green, it's everything but green. It's reflecting everything else, and it's absorbed the opposite, which is magenta, for instance. And so my goodness, so that was it, really. I don't know, it's very nerdy maybe to say, but that was kind of like, so we see in negative, so everything is like the negative of what we see. And I started, just developing upon that concept. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say something about that.
Yeah, I was just going to
Just
say
just
that
the other
that
day with my red glasses for the computer, and I was looking at a heart, and it was red, and I was looking at it black due to the red lenses, and I
well,
was like,
yeah. So
holy,
so
holy, and then all of this as above as below, everything fitting the Atlantean technology would recognize 12 gradients of light, and they would every time interconnect the negative with the positive because they knew how it worked. So the technologies would be aiming to one, but you would be receiving already the other component in order
Oh,
to generate the highest harmony, and not just because there is a decay every time that you think that you're perceiving something and it's not. Is like when you buy something and they give you another thing, that level of energy exchange.
yes,
So they were already taking care of that. You
yeah.
were going to say
Oh my
something.
God. Yeah.
yeah, so I can't help because like everything, because I just finished that book, relates back to that book for me, and what part of that is just about how really um, reduced and blind we are. Our perceptions, not just blind, like all the senses, and
Mhm.
how we're, and it's not just five senses. We have extra senses beyond that too. But I was, in my discussion with Danny Henderson the other day, where she was talking about how she meets Anunnaki, she wants to kick him in the balls because she, and I said, hey, I'm right there. I'm like right there with you because somebody turned us down, our perceptions, and the way we see things, because you're a scientist, you're giving us beyond our human experience, what technology can show us, right? And so,
Mhm.
but we're these sacks of water walking around arrogantly thinking that we know what's going on, and we're barely just seeing this tiny, tiny, tiny sliver, which I don't even have a good metaphor. I want metaphors. I want a metaphor for how tiny it is that we're perceiving of this entire electromagnetic spectrum of what existence is, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, and even though we have technology that's starting to help us with it, there's still so much of it that we're blind to, that we're still learning how to. And even if we can, okay, we can see X-ray here, we can see infrared with this one, but we're not seeing like all together. We're not putting it together. And then
Yes.
also like dimensionally, right? Um, this is what the other thing that I came to, like, where I really want to meet David Icke, because he's talking about these, the loosh thing and how these beings feeding on us and whatever. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you can't. There's so much that we could not see that might be around us, or even that may not exist in the same physical density, right? So when you have a physicist, somebody that can explain to you in a scientific way, like, we have to bring things down to a really low level for most people to be able to grasp, because they're just worried about, they got to put some air in their tire, or they've got to wash the dishes or whatever, and,
Yeah.
and deal with like this physical reality. But I mean, we're just being like played, by, higher dimensional or beings that have been here, the plasma beings that have, that are billions of miles across, galaxy wide, or the thing that we just manifested in a laboratory that's out of plasma and starts acting intelligently, right? Because it's reading from a greater space memory network or whatever, right? And
Yes. Yes.
my brothers get at me because I'll start explaining to them how important this conference is. They said, no, you have to dumb it down. You have to dumb it down. I'm like, how do I do that, right? Because I think that so many humans are just so used to seeing things in such a narrow spectrum. They're so comfortable with what the reality is. And I think part of what Isha's like talks about is like, somehow somebody hit her with a thunderbolt and made her be able to see codes and bring downloads and be able to, like, she's like, I call her like an intuitive physicist, right?
Yeah,
She
we were
like,
talking about that before you arrived.
yeah. And so putting you guys on the stage, like I've got, one following the other on purpose, because I'm expecting Ines, because Ines has got like a skill of like trying to bring some of these things down to a concept that normal basic humans maybe can grab onto, right? And then that she throws the ball over to Isha, who's gonna like take it and then blow it out into the hollow. Yeah,
Exactly.
right. So
Exactly.
it's the dynamic duo who's like what I'm looking for here, right?
That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Maybe it's amazing.
we will even be wearing matching dresses. So
There you go. Capes,
so
Yeah.
now that you are saying this, I was just thinking, okay, I want to explain this in particles, because I like to explain everything through quantum physics lens.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so how would you call in like lane particle, a lane particle, like instead of a lane man, like a lane particle. So because if it exists at that scale, it's because it also exists at a quantum scale. This
Yeah.
is how I see reality. So
Yeah.
at what moment do particles start to um, deviate by human perspective from their original purpose and start acting in order to give another feedback that will create that level of consciousness, as you were saying, Ines.
Yeah.
Because where you came, Frank, we were talking about how all energy has a very specific purpose, and sometimes these energies that they are neglected or taken for granted in a specific way, they'd end up resulting as the core or the origin for another force, a bigger force, to emerge. Otherwise there wouldn't be that complementary feedback, or let's say that polarized feedback that will lead to that holographic polarization and then consciousness. you
Well, so
know
so when I created this universe, okay, I made everything fractal, so it's that tiny level is going to be the same as the big level, right? So it's not going to change, right? Maybe the other one that we did, the last millennium might be different, but this one's not like that, okay? So I was just hearing about a new treatment for Parkinson's where it's just a frequency, and they put it on the person, and like the guy was just like, you know, he had just essential tremors, right? And I know a few people like this, so I was paying attention, and it one of my really, really close friends just had to put his partner in a care facility who's like younger than me because of Parkinson's and brain atrophy and these things. And it, you know, it just occurs to me like the frequency isn't the mastery of understanding these frequencies and their resonances, their polarization, to be able to pick them out and to isolate them and everything isn't just going to be for energy, or you know, it's like it's going to be rediscovering, remembering like this whole
Mm.
energy pattern that was, you know, around the planet that assembles everything, and like, you know, down to the smallest level up to the biggest level. And it's going to, I think the way that people are going to really start, the entry point is going to be when somebody like that recovers completely from something that's been thought to be completely uncurable, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of angles to this, right? like
Yes.
like
Yeah.
like we are, and a lot of it is remembering the things that we've had already that were destroyed previously, like the
We
things that the
disconnect,
work,
no?
like the artifacts, right? um
Mhm.
Trevor Hawk, I haven't talked to you, Ines, but Isha knows what I'm talking about. He's been doing a lot of really deep analysis on not necessarily the ones from Tula, but from ones from up by Wales,
Oh, well,
Wales,
yeah.
Wales,
Huh?
Yes.
Wales.
Well,
Yes.
okay, okay.
Yeah, and he's also seems to have recovered the formula for self-healing concrete, and also these
Wow.
aluminum silicate that these things, you know, are made of, that makes them shiny, you know. um,
Mm.
I you know, was sitting up
Okay.
arguing with AI about it, you know, and it was telling me that there's no way that these can be old because it's so high tech to make this. He he thinks that there's a plant-based extract that could do this at room temperature, and that,
Oh,
and the fact that these lasted so long, he said you can go in your backyard and get like the dirt and make the like make materials that are impervious to heat, cold, moisture intrusion, lichens, that the maintenance free, you know, and pour patches in concrete that'll just be stronger and the regular concrete. And this just gets back to recovering this lost knowledge. And I
yeah,
think it's, and at this point, I think it's being kind of covered up. I mean, we know it's been covered up, to
yeah.
bring us back. But imagine when you can get the dirt out of your backyard, make something you can live in that takes no maintenance, that will last. This is
And the and
17,000 years, you know, or whatever, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, what my point is, everything we're talking about here is so important. It's like the most important thing. This is the argument I'm having with my brothers about getting people to this conference. They're like, "What can you tell them to make them come? What is important?" I said, "Are you kidding me? Everything about this is important. This is like the most important thing you could be talking about. There's
yes,
nothing more important than this. Everything
yeah,
from the top to the bottom, from the physics, the technology, the ancient stuff, how it ties to, you know, the future, and also learning, you know, our origins and who it was that turned us down and blinded us and made us so we didn't see all of these extra frequencies and stuff, because
yeah.
maybe we've got to deal with that, you know. Anyway,
You know, that makes me think of something, because I know that in my case, like I usually try to not get so much information from the outside, because I try to like discover it from myself, let's say, you know. So in that path of remembrance, like Isa says, maybe there's also one part of us that decided to forget so that we could remember just the only the essential part, let's say. Because you know, when you let go, when you let's say empty yourself of so many layers of so many things, maybe what you just recover, it's like when you have too much luggage, or when you have too much things on your house and you just want to travel light, and you say, no, no, most of these things are not essential for me. I want to go back to the essential. So it's kind of like also putting this veil. I don't want to justify, of course, because I also resonate with what you say, But in my case, I do try to keep it as simple and as essential as possible. And I think people are getting into that same perspective, like saying, "Oh, I'm so tired of all this, working, wanting so many material things, and looking at the TV and scrolling down my phone. I want to go back to the essential. So it kind of like, that's very empowering once you take the decision, once you decide for yourself that that's what you want to have. That's So it's kind of like, I think that in this timeline, maybe we're redeciding something, like we're deciding something which is going to be extremely important for our future, because it's kind of like, okay, we got enough of all this bullshit, and we need to go into something that's, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like trying to just cut off the weed and just stay with what's really important.
You,
And
you make me you make me think about like when I went to Guatemala and I was in these really poor villages, and I mean the food there just like grows out of the ground, and everything is really delicious. And and I mean we stopped and just had chicken, and there was chickens running around in the restaurant, right? And it and it was the best chicken ever, right?
Of
And
course.
at a
Yeah.
really simple level, life can be really beautiful and really really good. And the people, they're just, I mean, they look you in the eye, and there's this feeling, this heart feeling, this connection that you don't get when everybody's been staring at screens, and that blue screen flicker has been interrupting their brain patterns.
yes,
And
yes.
the I just did an essay yesterday about what it came to me what's happening with all of the interconnected technologies, and how little it's like there's an inertia happening that is either going to result in a completely, when you get these technologies that you can, with a 3D printer, go out in your garage and make anything. You can make something good, you make something bad, right? um,
Mhm.
your community could get together and get like a bigger 3D printer, and you cooperate, and everybody, like, I need to make a car today, he needs to make a washing machine tomorrow, whatever. So you've got
Yeah.
you've got a higher level kind of greater purpose thing, but there's also, you've got to deal with people that have mental illnesses, or ideologies that think everybody needs to die because we have to have our, we have to fulfill this
Mhm.
prophecy, or this death cult prophecy, or whatever. It gets really dangerous from this point on, right? So
Yeah.
either the things have been being held up so that there's a break off civilization that can do their own thing and kind of leave us behind, or we really are being protected, because at this level these
Mhm.
technologies become extremely powerful. And it's not just right now, it's starting back in the 20s and
Mhm.
30s. They were
Mhm.
already doing a lot of stuff with plasma, atomic stuff. But so I think part of what all of us are working on is this kind of trying to elevate the human consciousness to understand that, get so the trauma and the things that, where people are not seeing the love and the beauty, like what you're talking about. And as like, when even Cambodia is like, I'm like, this is a Chinese communist country, and I haven't heard, I'm in this busy town, I haven't heard a one car beep its horn, and I've been through all these streets, and the stress level there was just so low, and people were just all, thank you, and it was the sweetest, most beautiful vibe, right? I'm not saying, you know be communist, be capitalist, be whatever. What I'm saying is that, getting human beings to a point where we can go over and build something with a replicator, or be
Mhm.
able to manifest in 5D, right? In a way that doesn't like erupt or disrupt other, like, okay, fractal universe, right? So everything going up bigger is the same, going down smaller. That means we have smaller universes inside of things. And this Nassim Harman talks about, when they're in that large hadron collider and they're smashing particles, you're destroying universes.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I want to say like a few things about what you said first, because when we were talking before you joined us, um, Ines said something about the lattice, the not the lattice itself, the matrix, the womb containing and protecting. And I was like, okay, so who would be that role? And I was saying like plasma, and then we were talking about plasma beings. And then I tap into all these artifacts that are showing all these plasma beings with all these spectral metallic, with these metallic spheres that are not only reckoning information, they're also activating lattices, as we speak. And how much there are these races, because you were asking, there shall be someone looking after us, and that's a huge message that I have been receiving, the critical involvement of the plasma beings and all their variations, and the role that they have in humanity thriving. Because even if we
Mhm.
see plasma generates a stability, of course, it can be used in many forms, but actually, in black holes, plasma is what
Mhm.
is giving the stability in the very same black hole. So there is plasma on inner Earth. A lot of inner Earth civilizations tap into those anomalies, actually,
Yeah.
to access to that plasma field and use it for their technologies. And now we have all these plasma beings connecting with us, contacting us with us. And I do feel that they are also, one of their many purposes is that they are giving a stability to the field, bringing that stability into the field. That's one thing. And another thing well, I'll just go there otherwise, because you did mention something
Well,
else.
let me
Yeah.
just jump in really quickly because we're talking about, okay, on these artifacts, there are a lot of images of these beings that look like genies. They're coming out of a bottle, or they have a tail, or they're
Yes.
etheric. I always look for toes and feet and legs and stuff, right? And so, but not only that, the crystal skulls, some of them that are going to be at Disclosure in Mackinaw in a
Yes.
few days. Physically, if you think about gravity, the skulls are like huge, like this, right? Like the physics of that.
Yes.
I'm thinking, is that an etheric being? Because if that had real weight, and I mean, in this gravity or whatever, it just seems like, and these were, it wasn't like one of those. There was like, I don't know, five so far of those things from that one site, along with other ones we've seen, and they're extremely long, right? And we've seen them drawn on things as well as these emulations of them. But let me just talk about, because everybody nowadays is, they hear people talking about plasma, and they don't think there's a lot of plasma shaming, because they say, you know what you're talking about, and it's the new buzzword and blah blah, right? So I did a test skywatch the other night, and I always like to do like the natives and not have anybody have any alcohol for 48 hours, because I think it lowers their density, right? So, and
Mhm.
it was after family reunion, I just mentioned it to the last night, a bunch of people, and one of my brothers showed up, right? And I didn't never thought that. And he's got a beer in his hand. I'm like, okay. Well, so,
There
okay.
needs to be
So
one, right? There
yeah.
needs to be one.
So we'll do this anyway, right? So we did it, and it was amazing. Like my cousin and his wife from Panama, who had met, they've been together for 14 years, was just blown away. And we're watching like this plasma in the sky, like undulating with lights going through it. And I'm just going, what? And I'm thinking, this is good, because my brothers who have no, they called this conference my alien pride conference. That's why they're teasing me, right? And I'm thinking, oh, good, they're going to see that the universe is not as small as they think it is, right? I get
Yeah.
home and I get a text from him. He sends me a thing about how many satellites there are on the sky. I'm like, well, yeah, there was satellites, but he didn't see. He didn't see the same thing that the rest of us saw, with the same eyes, looking at the same place, looking at the same phenomena. That's there's a difference in your density, your resonance, your vibration on not only the things that we can see in physical 3D and what's red and what's the opposite of red, but also in dimensional things. And that was like the first time that kind of struck me right in the face. So anyway, just that's my input on that.
Yes. 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 Um, so anyway, we were okay. So then I was talking about these features that I. Okay, so you touched so many topics, Frank, that
I'm
let's see.
sorry.
if I can wrap around that. Okay, so um, yes, we were saying that I do believe that if let's say your where you focus your attention maybe will also be filtered by your own state of like of your belief system. That's gotta be that's critical. That's why we say if you don't change your perspective, it's very difficult to see beyond. So it's kind of like you're usually in let's say we usually say that you must I must see to believe, but there's also the other way around, the feedback coming back. You also need to believe in order to see. It's not, it's not just in one direction. It's not because I believe, it's not because I have to see it first, so that I believe in that. So it's also the other way around. If you're open to that, it probably will be easier for you to see it. So in the case of your brother, I think, I mean, I think that the most, if one's gonna be have a stand, that's the one I would recommend, is just say no, neutral. Don't say that you believe or that you don't believe. You just stay neutral. It's that's that's like the safe spot to be. You're just neutral about it. Yeah, it could be or it could not be. You're neutral. You don't have any attachment to the wanting it to be true or not. you know and I think that's a very safe space for consciousness to stay to live in, because then otherwise you kind of like polarize the situation, you polarize your reality, in this in that can be very detrimental if you don't understand the logics of plasma and things like that. So very probably, what I would I usually try to bring people back to neutrality, given the let's say, given some arguments, so that they see that what they're thinking is biased. So when you see the how biased your belief system is, then you can like let go. And I'm not telling you have to believe in this. You don't have to believe in plasma beings. You don't have to believe in anything. And but you cannot have the stand of no, this is not possible. No, this is not real. This is not. You don't know. Anyone knows. Really, no one knows. So you stay in this state of neutrality. And I think that from that standing point, it it will be safer and also less dogmatic, also because you don't know if you're imprinting your own belief systems. Let's say that's what I'm being told all the time. How do you know that these people who have psychic abilities are really seeing what they're seeing? Could it that be that they're just fantasizing, that they're just projecting, that they're just having their own desire manifest? So we are
Well,
entering we are entering in a very very muddy place, because then subjectivity, and then this whole topic of discussion of subjectivity and objectivity. And I'm saying, guys, we are the boundary condition between objectivity and subjectivity. You cannot just remove one of them, because scientists want to be objective, and the spirituals just want to be subjective. And if you don't have both, there's no reality happening at all. A reality is happening at the boundary condition. And that's what I'm saying. I said before that light, you never see light directly. What you see is light matter interaction, which what's that saying is that light and matter are reciprocals. They don't exist one without the other. They don't exist one without the other. So they're reciprocals. And the boundary condition is what allows you to have both. So the work on the quantum of consciousness is looking into the separation framework. What I'm doing, all this theory that I'm trying to, it's more of an ontological frame, a philosophical, psychological, and ontological frame to know what we're talking about when we discuss physics. Because when we discuss physics, we take for granted something that it's not obvious, is that we're using language to express our ideas. We're using words, and that's extremely, David Bohm said it, that's extremely biased already. We're already framing it from a very from a very particular perspective. Yeah. So I imagine when I see, for instance, Issa's drawings, Issa's codes, I see very clearly that this is a very different standpoint, where this is a very different reference frame. And from that reference frame, you can see that, so this is very beautiful because this is tapping directly into what information is. When you say something is like that, I say this is like that, you're not describing that, you're describing where you're looking it from.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Well,
your perspective, so that's the observer. The observer. So you think that's something outside. What you're describing is where you're looking it from. So
And,
the
so let me
yeah,
just jump over
yeah,
here. Like I didn't say a word to him, right? I let him sit with it because part of what I talk about in my book is bias is a tool because we can't be unbiased. There's no way with our limited vision
exactly.
of what we're seeing going on. And like William Brown, you're William Brown. That there's a lot of William Browns, right?
yeah,
Biophysicist William Brown has written this new kind of description of what is intelligent and what is conscious. With different, like everybody talks about the Turing effect. The Turing effect is just imitating the human effect, right? But he takes into account, and it's all the theory, right? But it's ways of understanding things like what plasma starts acting as if it's making decisions, like even a ball of plasma they make in a laboratory and it starts acting like it's making decisions. Or we don't know that it's intelligent. We don't know if it has, if it's making decisions. But, if we try to put it through our filter, our bias of if it acts like us, then it's intelligent. Then, you know. So,
Yeah.
what my point is like part of this new knowledge structure that I'm designing incorporates biases. So we have like my brother with a beer bias, right? That's his bias, and then we compare it to my bias, right? And then we see what crosses over, and then we learn something new. It gives us a new way of looking at information because we're not saying something's right or wrong, and depending on that lens that we're looking through, it's probably imprinting and creating different information if the
yeah.
way that the universe works is the way that we think it is, that our
Exactly.
perceptions and manifestation and blah blah.
Yeah.
And I
And
don't think
Yeah.
a reflection, like for instance, plasma beings, the ones that I communicate with, they don't even communicate through words. They communicate through geometries and frequencies because that's the purest form of expression. What we have
Yeah.
interpreted as light and frequencies, we have created it as a language, alphabet, and even the purest forms of alphabets, they work through gematria, which is numbers that are translating those geometries based on the gradients of light that they emit, like the color force and so forth. So the purer that we start to communicate is like even through a look. You can transmit the deepest message just by looking at someone's eyes.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is so much interference in our minds that we cannot tap into that level, that intimate level of communication, because plasma for me is coherence. The more that we are in the interferential field, the more that we are not connecting with our plasma, which is inherent, but like from that level of awareness. And another thing is that what you were both talking about for me is describing embodying singularity.
Mhm.
Being, sometimes we think that the observer is really far, like when they're contemplating the Hawking radiation and the event horizon, whether he's going to go through the black hole or not. But actually, the observer is very much even at the core. It's in the singularity. This is why the hurricane has an eye, the shape of an eye, because it's the observer as source itself. You're contemplating everything from the core of origin, from the first point of emission. Then you will have the feedback. But the first point of emission is at the center, and this is very much even explained in ancient teachings when they talk about the seven directions. All cyclic systems or time systems were created considering the observer point at the center. Then you have north, south, east, west, zenith, nadir, and then the observer, which is the seventh. So yeah.
Yeah,
is what.
you're just describing the framework of the quantum of consciousness is exactly what you're talking about. But it was derived, let's say, using the logic behind light matter interaction, because I was just analyzing that separation frame. There's matter and there's light. There's a separation frame there, you know? Okay, you have that frame that separates. This is light, this is matter, and it's an absolute separation. If you understand that separation frame, which is basically also going into language. And then if you have confined vibration and free propagating vibration, which is of another way of looking at those. If you see all those dialectics that are happening behind, you'll see that there's a pattern. And when you see this through this pattern, you'll recognize that there are these mixed states that generate a whole circuitry where the observer would be the singularity looking at itself through these all various perspectives, but it goes back into and it unfolds, creating this sort of double torus dynamics. So when you talk about double torus dynamics, it's basically this very complex feedback feed forward mechanism that's bringing back to yourself, to singularity. So that's basically, yeah. But it's interesting because it is also explaining that the boundary condition of a black hole is where the observer is to the outside, let's say. You have because that's where you have this separation frame from the outside and the inside. So it's beautiful because then you see something, you humanize something, or you make it more close to you. This is not, this entity over there that's cosmological, that's vacuum cleaner, that's sucking everything. No, no, no. You're talking about a very subtle, very complex information processing which is happening at the event horizon, which is the whole circuitry of the observer, what I call the quantum observer, just to frame it. So that's the whole framework of the quantum of consciousness, is trying to look into the dynamics of the observer. Who is the observer? Where is the observer located? What is information? The information is embedding the observer. So we need to understand it's not that the observer is projecting the real. No, 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 no. It's already embedded within. You're not projecting from the outside anything. It's the information is already embedded within the observer. And when you see the what's displayed, it's embedding the observer already. And that's a beautiful way of reapproaching the topic, because you usually think that the observer is something outside that's projecting the wave function and collapsing the wave function into the reality. But in reality, it's much more entangled than that.
So,
It's
so when you, okay, so you, this being here
uh-huh,
observing, right? Okay,
uh-huh.
I have a morphogenic field. I've got a there's fields, there's different fields of energy, and also a bio, I forget the other one. I was talking to Emery Smith about this. It's a, anyway, he was impressed that I knew the name of it, but I can't remember it right now. Anyway, I think it's just simply a biofield. Anyway, so we're surrounded by these fields, right? And then some of us, depending on, like, he's said to me before, like, Frank, your aura's the size of Sedona. You got to relax. Like, so this field, it's got an energy and a power to it. So if I'm an observer, I could be affecting what I'm observing with my field, as well as observing it, as well as my location, seeing it, as well as my perception in processing it. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of levels to when you just talk about, like, I know there's a certain definition of observer effect, but I was like, Nassim said that the observer effect, as it's understood just in physics, in the classical, like, way it's taught, doesn't take into effect your own interference with the
The field.
the thing you're observing, right? So,
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's
yeah.
exactly the case. You what you're observing, let's say that what you're observing has already been it was all how can I say this? It's already embedded within. It's just
Your
it,
signature, let's say your source code. That's how I call it, the source code.
yes,
Each one
exactly. It's
has a
already
unique source code.
exactly. It's already embedded within. And it's interesting because when you talk about information, the word you'll see now information is like the word. So before it was mass, energy, forces, fields. Okay, but then everything got back like to this very simple word, which is information. But what is information? If you're in an absolute homogeneity, there's no information, because in order to have information, you need a contrast. You need a contrast. You need at least one contrast, and that is a separation frame. If you're creating a contrast, then you have separation. So,
Well, you in order to
so
have a universe, you have to have that. Otherwise, everything's the
yes,
same. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
exactly. You need separation frames. You need them. I mean, they're ontologically unavoidable. They are that's like the main topic. And so then it's this kind of like boundary condition. You can say it like that. And what are black holes? If you see them archetypical, what's the archetype of a black hole? Boundary condition, pure boundary condition, space outside and space inside divided by a boundary condition. So that's really so explicit. Reality happening, consciousness all happening at the boundary condition. And there's nothing else anywhere else that there. And it's kind of like incredible because it recalibrates everything such that you understand that we are that boundary condition where the universe is experiencing itself at the human scale, and that's a very different way of looking at it. Like we are that boundary condition where the universe is experiencing itself at the human scale, which is, yeah, humanity, what we are. Let's say we could say that, and that gives a little bit more of depth to the concept that we have, that we are the universe looking at itself. Yes, yes, that's the case, but how is that happening? Why? I mean, what's the description behind? So it's all, and it's not a coincidence then when you have the scaling law from Nassim, it's a boundary conditions. It's all black holes from the Planck scale up to the universal scale, at the center of the proton, at the center of the kernel of the Planck spherical unit, at the center of the sun, at the center of the atom. Well, we know the proton, and at this, the even the universe, it's a black hole. It fulfills the conditions of a black hole. So we're talking all the same. It's all boundary conditions entangled. These are all event horizons that are entangled. From the very small to the very big. So it's incredible. It's beautiful, and
And
it's really
so infinite. And so infinite, because if you take into consideration the black hole and the white hole as the Penrose diagram, then you have a wormhole, which is just a different form of, let's say, again, gradients of information entangled and together, and the different type of forces that they apply to one another. But, gradients, because are the same forces. But again, it's infinite, and it becomes so simple. Like, for instance, when people ask me, do you think a black hole is the same as a wormhole? Do you think a portal is the same as a stargate? Do you think? And I'm like, they use the same technology, they use the same fundamentals. So we ourselves can actually transfer our consciousness to any black hole network, to any star, to anything that we choose to, due to the fact that we have the same the same formulas taking place within, just at different gradients. And
yeah,
that's, for me, that's majestic, it's sublime. you
Well, I think
know
yeah.
okay, so. You're talking about portals, black holes. You're talking about things that go between like the boundaries. You're talking, right? And there's two people. This is anecdotal, that I've been told that they're in programs because they somehow are used because their consciousness can manifest portals, right? And then also the fact that when I was talking to Nassim once, I said, the whole um, entanglement thing is just makes, if you look at it from a materialist standpoint of view, like here and then a billion light years away, this particle acts the same, as the one it's entangled with over there, right? I said, it says to me that everything is in one place and the distance is the illusion, right? So
Yes.
and he didn't say anything, he just smiled at me, um but so
Yeah.
it makes all of these things more on the level of a it's it's our fantastic, beautiful illusion that we have all of this, right? And we're experiencing it, we're touching it, we have these senses, limited as they are. We have these experiences because how boring is it if if nothing is if there's no boundary condition, we're all in one little dot, right? So
Exactly.
we got bored and
Yeah.
decided to go out, and make the illusion of distance. But basically, we're all one singularity, really. That
We are,
The Quran says, just before going to another topic, I was with a friend who is very wise, and he knows the Quran like complete, letter by letter. And he was telling me that the most important part of the whole Quran is, and in the first page, in the first paragraph, the last part. And I was like, the period? And he tells me, yes, everything is contained in that black dot. Another thing you said about the singularity, it was like, yeah, everything is contained there. So
what is that? Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
but you can use it also if you like better the Bible or the Torah. You can apply it for any type of ancient textbook or not ancient. But yeah, it's a very good one. I loved it. But that. So
yeah.
Mackinaw.
yes. So
I'm
Mackinaw.
someone that has just joined the stream. I'm loving what you guys are saying, and I want to go to Mackinac. What do I need to do, Frank?
Okay, well, there's a couple of things. If you're geographically close, you probably already know where Mackinac is. If not, you could go on Mortals of Earth, and under the page for the conference, I'll give you some instructions on the convenient airports and things like that. And if you're coming here, don't try to get an Uber or a rental car. We'll come and get you because we're up in a beautiful place, and Uber's more of a theory here than it is a concept, or than a reality. So, and we'll take care of you. We're gonna, if you are coming to the conference, we'll give you breakfast and dinner. And I've just negotiated with a food truck today in case somebody wants lunch, because we're going to take a break in the middle of the day. But you can also join us virtually, and there's 2 coupon codes I know sitting right here looking at me. I think I don't know if Ines, did you fill yours up? Is there a coupon for Ines? Okay, and a coupon for YssaH. So
Yes.
if you want to sign up online and watch it streaming, that's why I was late. I was going over my technical stuff with my guy about, okay, we have to have this come in from this camera, go to this audio, to go through this hard drive, to go out to this stream, to do this. So but we're going to have online streaming available globally for the whole conference if you can't make it here. And there are so many firsts happening at this conference that it's unbelievable. It's like you've got Scott Walter actually going to show us what Yeshua's handwriting looked like. They've been protecting it for thousands of years, and this is the guy who's going to show it to us. And he's also got another set of Knights Templar documents. When he leaves us, he's pursuing more, but they get a bunch of guys in the room. They get a bunch of these Knights Templar Freemason guys, and they get a pizza. They don't leave the room for 3 days. They're decoding, and they've decoded ancient writings about non-human beings. That this is the first time, that this has been reflected in their writings, and he's going to be talking about that as well. We're going to be we've got, how many of us were at that dig site where we brought these artifacts out? We'll all be on that stage talking about it with images, with the artifacts coming. Well, they're on their way. Okay, so they're going to be there, right? And we're talking like crystal skulls like this big and amazing crystal tablets, and these things have not been decoded. The people coming, the energy of the people that are attracted to this. Who knows who's going to get the download when they're standing there looking at this to tell us, oh, because I've already had this happen. People look at something and they go and say something like, whoa, that makes so much sense, right? It's like YssaH talking about, it's not necessarily a language with vowels. Sometimes it's just meant to enter your brain,
Start spinning holographically and then generating non-local entanglement with your field, you know.
Yeah, you might even go home and dream about it or whatever, and then come back the next day. Anyway, so then then we've got JP bringing a pine cone given to him by a Nordic being from a ship that he feels guided to plant a seed in Mackinaw from. And so because of that, originally when I heard about this, I said, dude, I said, you got a pine cone, I got handbags, and I got a couple, and Isha might be helping me out. We're going to have a selection of handbags for him to pick from, the one he wants to hold. Now, I've been able to make things come out of the sky at night, and he's done it with 1,000 people, right? So together we're going to be doing the sky watch, and the place we have is spectacular. I mean, even like my brothers and I own this place, and they hadn't been out there at night to look at it at night. And I was like, look, it's the sky is so big. You have to pick like what part you're going to look at. Like, okay, you watch that part, I'll watch this part, because it's just like so huge, right? And
how's the weather? Sorry to interrupt. How's the weather?
Well, okay, if you're from Mexico or Florida, you're going to probably, it's like 70 degrees during the day, and the evening it can get down anywhere from 65 or maybe a little bit cooler. And it might, because we're right on, we have, Michigan's like a huge Great Lake, huge Great Lake, huge Great Lake. So, the conditions can change, but this time of the year, it's almost like a perfect 72 degrees every day. And so that's why this is going to be a flexible conference. So the first night we have a clear sky, we'll do the sky watch. So because Drago Reed is like, he's the floating one. I said, look, you always get cut off, Drago, when you do conferences. I will not cut you off, but if it's a clear night, we're going to go do the sky watch, and then you go the next night, right? So he's good with that. And and that's the other thing too, is like, other conferences, like Nassim it was Trevor was telling me that he and Nassim and William were at Contact in the Desert, and they were just about to present their DNA evidence on the Paracus skulls, and they turned their microphone off because they had hit 45 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, their whole conference has to go by the dot, right? And people booed, not at them, but at the people there, right?
Yeah, of course.
And if you guys have seen that research, it's incredible, right? Can you imagine? Like, they stop it right then. Okay, that will never happen at Disclosure Mackinaw, because we don't have union rules, so we don't have to close a room. Yeah, I own the place; it's my house, right? So we're going to stay up and we're going to get it all done, right? We're going to make sure everybody gets to finish their stuff.
Yay!
And so so JP will physically be here doing that, and then Emery is going to be coming in virtually, and he'll be giving us his experience, 14 years in the insider military, dissecting things. Who knows? They might be chimera, they might be non-human, they might be whatever. But he's also, both of them have had experiences with non-human beings, and also part of the conference is putting them together. Now, I saw Emery and him on stage, and Emery has gotten to be really comfortable with being a host, so he was kind of like, hosting with JP. No, they both sit there, and I'm going to ask the questions because they're both fascinating. Because I want to get that going between both of them, right? I mean, everybody wants to be in that. Like when we go to dinner afterwards, and I got Emery sitting there, and I got JP sitting there, I got John Charles sitting there, and Anisha's sitting there, and Sean's sitting there, and this conversation that goes on. Everybody wants to be in the fly in the wall at that, and so we're gonna do that here. And no strict. I mean, we're going to try to keep a break in the middle of the day, because we're in this gorgeous place, so people can get out in the sunshine, ride a bike, or go swim in the lake, or go have a pizza, or to go take a nap, or whatever you want, right? And then at night we'll have a bonfire on the Straits of Mackinaw. This gorgeous view. We have a mile of shoreline. I only have a mile, so you'll have to get over it. So you don't. But so we can have our bonfire out there, and I've got a accordion my dad left me that's been sitting in a box for years. I've taken it and traveled hundreds of miles with it, and then we didn't, nothing happened. But Trevor is going to get it out and play it. He likes to play like gypsy Roma, things. He's badass on an accordion. I mean, you don't think of being badass and accordion going together, but So and Trevor is bringing two things no one has ever seen, right? He's got his first presentation on, okay, we're good friends. And I like don't talk about a lot of stuff because like he's, you know, okay, he gets in a lot of trouble just with the stuff he brings up anyway, right? But he's going to come forward with the alien non-human information from Egypt that and it's not just he's making it up. He's got evidence, he's got witnesses, he's got eyewitnesses. We're bringing in one of the eyewitnesses. It's going to be a secret surprise. Got a presentation around that, and it has to do with Giza Plateau. This is where the Biondi scans have been done. There have been documents recovered from the CIA that also corroborate this information. So this will be brought out for the first time, disclosure in Mackinaw. Also, Edgar Casey. Now, I've seen people online go, oh, Edgar Casey, he's been debunked, which is like the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, because anybody who knows about Edgar Casey, there's thousands and thousands of readings he's done, and people have only seen like a couple of books of it, right? And the things that he's read and brought forward, and they have to kind of be interpreted too, though. Anyway, from his readings, it's quite clear. He said that there's 3 ancient hall of records that were left, for the cataclysm for us to find. And one was under the left paw of the Sphinx, and which now, okay, there's 2 Sphinxes, by the way, everybody out there. I don't care what YssaH says. There's 2 of them, and so I don't know which one is like. My dowsing rods tell me it's where Bill Brown's horse stable is. I mean, I did like a bunch of they do not. If you got dowsing rods out in Egypt, you got to like stay out of sight because they will arrest you, because that's witchcraft, But so I did little Frank craft, and the guard was distracted, and I got all the way around the Sphinx, and every time it pointed to Bill Brown's horse stable, and we know that there's an underground pyramid there that YssaH's been trying to get into. I don't know if he has yet. We know he's drilled holes, and they put a tent over it to hide it and whatever. But there's another one, Piedras Negras, which I got to go along with him and Marco Vagato, and Marco's film's coming out Sunday on this. And now Marco is very academic, yet he will go there when it talk, Atlantis, previous civilizations. I mean, he won't talk about alien artifacts, but he'll talk about Atlantis, right? But so I'm running around barefoot there, and I'm going, Trevor, I think it's over here. And he's going, well, I read this thing and there was air coming out, and I think it's this. I don't know. And we went around in circles, right? And then we got all done. He got back and went, that place you were pointing, that's where it was. So we pretty much think we know where the Hall of Records is there. And so because it's not as much of a situation as it is in Egypt, in that part of the world, to get permits. And we happen to know somebody who from space can look at things. We might be able to narrow that down. So anyway, for the first time anywhere, Trevor will be showing you his documentation of that journey. And the cenote is this hole, goes down the ground, and most of them have water. This is a dry cenote. This is the largest one on Earth. It's there, and it's called the Great Entrance when you translate it, right? And so we didn't go down in the Great Entrance because it was like terrifying. I mean, there's trees, and it just goes like straight down. Yet,
wow,
we will end up going down. Trevor's like arranging to get down, so going to go down.
Well, right. You might find me in one of your suitcases. I'm very good at those type of adventures. I fit everywhere. You know it. You both know it. I don't need to sell the idea.
I saw you crawl in that hole, Trevor, that tiny hole in the ground. So yes, I know. Yeah. So yeah, if you're like going down a rope, down a cliff, okay. With pumas.
Imagine that one day I even did rappel with flat flip-flops, just rope.
This will be a lot of that. Okay. Yeah. With like trees and things. Well,
yeah. That's super exciting.
So that will also be disclosed. And Emery Smith, and Darla, for the first time, are going to be giving a major presentation on their frequency-based wellness system. I have to be careful about the words I use here, right? But
Yeah.
and I will disclose that they're actually working with me on this, because it's been, I don't know. When I met them in Sedona, I was talking to people about some things I was working on, and they were all Emery, 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 right? And so I have some good personal knowledge. I said, Emery, you need to do an official big presentation on this stuff so people know about it. And you can go to his Emery Star webpage and look it up. But this will be them going through, because Darla is like a registered nurse and she's a Reiki master, and she developed a lot of this with him. So she'll be giving a lot of that presentation. And it just came to mind when I saw this thing about they were curing Parkinson's with one treatment of a frequency treatment, right? And all of his stuff is based on that, and also nano particle technology, and even the bottles he sends stuff in are like, I don't know how much they must cost, because I'm like, can I wash this out and send it back so we can use it again? Because no, we have to have fresh bottles, right? But he was talking about just even glass, like it's crystal, right? That you need to get it your frequency. You can like, plastic and things like that you don't necessarily want in your body either, but even glass, you want to tune
Yeah.
it to your frequency. And he's very careful with the things that he sends out to. Anyway, so then that final evening will be the pop-up museum with a bunch of stuff that we pulled out of the ground in Tula and Ovelos. Ovelos. I'm getting better. And I'll have videos of not only you guys pulling stuff out of the ground with me, and then myself and Anthony Michael as well. And the thing is, I was just thinking today about this, Isa. Okay, imagine. Do we know how old those ruins are that were on top of it? Because for everybody that doesn't. This is an area where there's ruins from something that was maybe a few hundred years old. We don't know. There's no plumbing. There's no, it's got to be quite old, right?
Yeah, like at least 100 years old.
Okay, so I was thinking, because one of the caves that got broke into the last time and all these skulls were in, right? Remember that there was a period of time there when if the church found out about it, they would destroy it, burn it, whatever, right? And this was built right over top of it. So it makes me wonder, like, what chicken or egg, right? Was it there and they built over top of it, or was they hiding it, to preserve it? Because a lot of these,
sense.
It would be interesting to know how old those are.
Yeah, well, we can see that even the concrete that was used to create the tunnels, the shafts themselves, it's made of a very old type of mix that they would use in the pre-Hispanic times. That doesn't guarantee that older generations would be using that technique, but definitely that white concrete mix is definitely consistent to the ones that they would use in Mesoamerican times.
So
Now,
they could have been hiding. They could have been hiding it from the Spanish. That could have been the original thought, was like, because some of the items are very unusual to be put together.
Yeah. It looks like, for instance, if you now purchase an antiquity, and then later on, let's say 100 years from now, someone comes and see modern pieces for us now, along with antique pieces. That's very much what was taking place in some of the ceremonial chambers. Like the one where the glowing
yes,
concrete head is. Yes, we found pottery pieces. We found, like, you feel that, and it's pretty much evident that they put different pieces from different contexts in time together. So for me, the deeper that you go, the purer the information is. By means of this, as deep as we go, then there will be no contamination of different time frames in the ceremonial chamber put together. Well, I don't think that we will even be finding anymore like all these ceremonial spaces, um, what we call ceremonial. uh, for me, we will
like a tribute.
to
Or
technologies. For me, we will be
okay.
into other type of technologies.
See, I was talking to Danny about this because she was talking about the skulls. She said, "Well, I didn't feel any energy from this skull." And I said, "Danny, here's the thing." I said, "There was our little baby, Isha, our conehead baby."
Yeah.
Okay, when that one came out, everybody who do you experience this, Ines? Like when you took it out, it just felt like a baby, like a hug, And then the green one, it can stay far away. That one can stay far away, right? And then
Yeah.
yeah, and the twins, the two guys, they kind of felt like very neutral, kind of guardian. Like it was like they were making a battery of energy in there to me. Like I thought, okay, we got this really aggressive. Like the green skull was probably that thing. If you're going to talk about value, because it was probably a jade or jadeite, which is almost as hard as a diamond.
Yeah, jadeite. Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
they can stay far away. I don't care. So, but so that's there, and then we got the two guys next to it, and then behind it was the rose quartz conehead one that had that warm energy, and then over top of it, up in the corner, we had that big elongated head embracing the feathered snake that I think that one glows with UV light as well. I don't remember.
The cone head, the rose quartz one.
No, there was a it was a little carving, and it had a feathered serpent wrapped around, and it had a elongated head, kind of alien looking.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was it.
yeah. Like the master of the serpent. I call it that way. I think, yeah, I think he glows. Yes.
Now the strange thing was that crystal peyote thing. It was like a peyote sculpture of crystal, and I was checking things, going, what would be, and it was no, and it was like right in the front, right? So to me, it was like a guardian with a aggressive energy with the two neutral kind of dudes, and then the beautiful loving thing was protected in the back, and then like I just see this whole kind of energetic battery that somebody was assembling in there. It didn't seem random. Like you were talking about how the tablet in the other cave had been upside down, right? And this one was right side up, like the image on it. And so these things are all intentional. And by the way, they think most of these things we're talking about will be in Mackinaw, August 31st, September 1st and 2nd. You can come and see them, experience them, feel them yourself, and give us your impressions, because we're going to be recording. We want people to tell us what they see, what they feel, what their impressions are. And so, yes. And if you can't come online, you can use the code either Ines or YssaH and get 10% off. And you'll actually be, we'll see if I can survive this one. We may have more of these because it's a beautiful place, and it's a lot of work to do a conference. And I've got enough. I've been just looking at everybody who's coming and what they have to share. I probably won't. I had just spent years writing a book. I don't think I have a minute to even talk about that, but I think that all of this fits into it. All of it is informed by it. So I don't feel bad at all, because I think it's all part of the same story,
Yes.
And anyway, so Mackinaw, like Michigan's like a hand. If you look at a map, it's at the very tip here, right? And it's actually considered, like TripAdvisor calls this for the last 15 years, the top tourist destination on Earth. During the summer, right? Because in the winter it's a little colder. But I'm so happy to share it, not only with you guys, but anybody else who is attracted to it, because the place here is just magical, gorgeous, and it's probably one of the. We're not going into a hotel, into a conference room under fluorescent lights. We're going to be in a natural environment, and it's going to be just a different flavor of being able to experience this in a lot of brand new things that no one's seen before, and some potential for some really unusual phenomena as well. Anyway.
Yes. Well, I what I do want to say is that this is how I feel about this conference, because I have said many things. Uh, what I haven't said, at least not in this way, is that for me, what will be taking place there is, if you can really be part of it, if you feel the calling, come, because it's your soul letting you know that you will be finding important things for you. All of these components that Frank has talked about, the beautiful speakers, and I say this in the most honorable and humble way, it's people that have done big research, or we have done big research in different manners, and it's like the content is going to be incredibly nourishing. Like, I am really like saying, wow, I really don't want to miss any of these presentations. It's like it's so fully packed, and the way that it's all being put together, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for many reasons, because the place itself, even if Frank does it again, it's always unique. It's going to be such a success, because the place itself, guys, that I did a video on this, like, it's the Mackinaw is one point, one node that is interconnecting two of the five energetic triangles that are known in United States, that are connected to the Bermuda Triangle. So how, and it makes sense because this place has been kept like very secret. um there was a Nazi interaction there. So I'm pretty sure, and I do have said this, I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of technologies under the sea, and one of the reasons why we are there, it's because something will be activated, because it's not only about the speakers, it's not only about the content. It's like we are, it's like we are tribe. It's like you see ourselves, you see yourself through us. It's not big of a deal, it's just the time that we get to connect, to experience each other at a deeper level, and that is priceless. And moreover, having these adventures together, where you will get to see our adventures, and then we will get to create our adventures in Mackinac, doing that night watch, that sky watch. I have also received, similar information to what just Frank said. They are waiting for us with, like, Frank. He's very powerful, and yet he created this event out of the ether, and like 1 month, 2 months, it was already like all the foundations together. That's because something huge is going to take place. Everything had already been orchestrated. And yeah, I'm very, very excited. I just really needed to ask you, Frank, what is the weather there? Because I was just thinking, what am I going to?
We
Yeah,
might be wrapping you up a bit because
yeah.
like, okay, let's see. Let me just see what the temperature says right now. Okay, at this very moment, all right, it's 67 degrees, which that would be a cool night, in
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, good. I'm just going to come prepared. I mean, I've been working on my presentation, so
Sweet guy.
excited. I experienced something that I had never experienced before, which is tears in my eyes, like when you ran into something that you hadn't seen in such like a long time, that I was like, oh wow, you're here. And I'm talking about the information that I tapped into, and I had never experienced this. So I'm pretty excited. Like, I'm so excited to share this with you guys. So
Yeah,
excited.
yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. This is like a premiere for at least for me as well in this environment, because I have been always been in scientific domains and a little bit the environment with Nassim and a lot. But this is like the first time I kind of like, this is also my disclosure. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be
Beautiful.
I present my work. So yeah, this is I'm very honored for this opportunity. Thank
Well,
you
it
so
was
much.
wonderful to have a very practical scientist with us as we're crawling under the ground, pulling these crazy things out of the earth, and to have you as a witness with us, because, I've been, God love it. Like the locals there, they're finding these things. They'll dig a grave and find these things, and nobody pays attention to them. So it takes a bunch of, well, you guys aren't, but I'm a gringo. Come down there, and we shoot and we make a film. And all of a sudden it becomes, credible in some way, maybe.
Right.
But
No,
it's not. To have you there, Ines, was like
no,
very, very. It was very. It lended a lot of extra weight to everything. And I know when you're in the academic world, it's not necessarily a safe thing to do, is to stick your neck out and get into these kind of things that are forbidden, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I salute your bravery.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very
no,
much doing that.
thanks,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's the
yeah,
same thing that we have spoken, like we know that Nassim has shown a while, like a few years ago, some the research that he did alongside with Emery and with Trevor.
Oh my
And
God, what Trevor's giving us to show is going to change the world. I mean, these artifacts are going to change the world already. I mean, he we went we started I started taping it. It was 2.5 hours. We're both going, oh my God, we can't do 2.5 hours. So he's cutting a shorter version, but we're going to save that full thing, and when the museum is open, we'll play it so everybody can hear it
oh,
too,
that's awesome.
because
That's awesome.
it was so much content going so fast. uh, you know it's one of those interviews you're going, oh my God, how can anybody handle this? We're finishing each other's sentences, but the, what is coming out of these is so groundbreaking that he said that years ago he would have these great meetings and people would be so excited, and then when they would see them, they would see an alien on them, they would just cut him off and never talk to him again, right? He said now
yeah,
he went to this conference in Paris. He was the closing presentation, and he said when they see the aliens on, they're like, oh, that's interesting. It doesn't, it's a completely different vibration. Things have changed,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, they have. Well, exciting times coming up, and I'm very grateful to be here at this moment, and even more so with you. Uh, it's a Yeah, it's just a rencounter, a soul rencounter for sure. So, and this is just the beginning, because stay tuned, guys. Not only about an upcoming conference, yet museums, documentaries. A little,
new earth changing products as well will
yeah,
come out of this.
yeah,
And so we'll learn more about that at Disclosure in Mackinac.
after that. So I hope that you join us physically, and if
Yeah.
you can, as Frank said, do it online. If you feel the calling, it will be very easy. Frank has made everything like so easy, even picking people up at the airport. Like, who
Oh,
does that? So thank you for all that generosity, Frank, and your family as well, and everyone behind, all of that beautiful construction that is taking place, and that we will be part of in the upcoming days. So, yeah, again, more, triple W, Mortals of Earth, get your tickets, whether if it's Ines or mine coupon code, just I don't know if you rhyme, if you like more the frequency of Ines or Isha, or it's all the same. It's all going to the same, for the same purpose, which is having fun. And that's the important, the beauty of it. Thank you so much, Ines. Thank you so much, Frank. Yeah, we had a lot of fun and went through very deep concepts. I love, Ines, how deep the frequency of your voice, and also the universe that is emitted through that goes, because it's not someone just talking physics and is like, are
yeah,
you doing it? No, it's
yeah,
like, like going really deep. You feel it, and I love it. Thank you so much, as well as Frank. What can I tell you? I'm
I can't
like,
wait to have both of you on the same, these presentations happening back to back. It's going to be something.
Yeah,
It's
and I
gonna be
can't wait to listen to your presentations and reading your book and listening to your music and everything that will be taking place. Seriously, it's like there is going to be everything. A lot of things will be taking place, and I can't wait. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for your beautiful words, for your beautiful presence. And yeah, you're still on time. I hope I'll see you in Mackinac. We will be definitely having a lot of fun. Until
Join
next,
us. Come on.
yes,
Come
join us.
on, join the flow. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.